Good afternoon, everybody. We're here now with Iris and Leonard. Iris and Leonard, I met very soon after I joined the church because one of the first things I did joining Niles Discovery Church was join the adult Sunday school. And that's where I met Iris and Leonard. And the adult Sunday school it's just awesome. I went in there, and one of the first books they were reading was Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. And I'm telling you, uh, I got an education as an African American from being in that adult Sunday school that I never knew. Great book, and we had great conversation, and we've gone into lots of other really great books, Richard Rohr, and one book I remember in particular, Holy Chaos. And when I saw the title, I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. But it was excellent, and I agreed and got so much out of that book. So anyway, we started with adult Sunday school. Ours has been for years very much involved with SAVE. So she invited me to a SAVE meeting, and after that, we ended up planning a trip to South Africa, had it all planned, and then COVID stepped in and put that on hold, and it's still on hold. And, God willing, we'll get there one day. And,
yes.
So I'm going to turn it over to Leonard and Iris, and I want you all to tell us about your first faith journey, how you discovered Niles and why you're at Niles and the things you love about Niles. And let's convince some other people that Niles Discovery Church is the place to be.
Good. So should I start, Leonard, or?
Might as well.
Okay. I have to say that I'm surprised to be a member of a church. When Leonard and I came into the Niles community in 2013, we were looking for a place to get married. And we ended up talking a bit with Pastor Jeff about the arrangements. And he said something, I think, in passing about yellow page weddings, how people find churches to get married in through the yellow pages. And I thought, well, I don't think I want to be a yellow page wedding. And so I had actually known Beth Razor for a while. And Beth said, if you ever want to go to a church, let me know and come to Niles Discovery Church. And I sort of had that in the back of my mind. And I knew that, and Leonard, chime in here, you wanted to look for a church for our wedding. And it made sense to stay in the neighborhood. So we went to a service.
And I had the impression that Beth had specifically thought that maybe Pastor Jeff would do it, that we'd be welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting for me because the last time I went to church regularly was when I was in high school. And so as I got through college and moved out into the world on my own, I kind of left the church participation behind. Mm-hmm. And I think two things about that are important to this story. One is that my parents originally raised us in the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church was really not very comfortable with women. And working in domestic violence, helping to found the first domestic violence program in Fremont, I really needed a church that was comfortable with women. And so I even though I kept being drawn into Catholic circles through the social service element, I actually had a fellow try to recruit me into Catholic Charities at one point. It just didn't feel like a good fit. Right. And then the other churches that I kind of went to were very much on the on the personal savior story. And that was okay, but it seemed pretty siloed. That seemed to be the only part of the story. And so it never fit for me in the work that I was doing. But that first time we went to service at Niles Discovery Church, I saw people I had been working with for years. Judy Zlatnik was there, and Judy was on the city council when the shelter first got its funding to operate. Beth Armstrong was there, and Beth and I had worked not closely, but in the same building at the Family Resource Center, where she was managing a mental health program, and I was also involved in a mental health program. So it was like, oh, there are all these people I know.
Yeah, that had to be comforting.
And so it just felt like, this feels like home.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very good.
yeah.
That's a great feeling to get when you go into a church. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Jeff, Pastor Jeff made it so clear what all our welcome meant, that there weren't exclusions. When we started talking about what we would say as part of our wedding is our commitment, his flexibility was amazing. I was raised a Catholic. There was no flexibility in the wedding ceremony.
Right.
So, I wanted to give the church a try, not just get married and say goodbye, and all the social justice stuff that we quickly discovered was very impressive.
Yes.
It's that, and by social justice, I'm including the environmental.
Right. Yeah, the environmental, it's very big at Niles. Very good.
And we went, Pastor Jeff arranged to have coffee with us. And so we did the meet and greet, and it was really interesting because the openness to the journey, whatever it was pretty clear. And it was clear when I talked to Beth Armstrong. It was clear when I talked to Pastor Jeff. It was clear. I mean, one of the things that I liked in the service was that opening song, Let's Walk Together for a While and Plant Seeds. All those things were so welcoming, and didn't have requirements about looking a certain way or behaving a certain way or worshiping in a certain way. That all seemed really valuable. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
and then Sunday school.
It was so much the opposite of my experience in an East Oakland church where my family and I were attending at the time, where I was one of the teachers for like junior high and senior high students that would come on a Saturday of all things, on their own time. Some through heavy parental coercion, others just looking for something not troublesome to do on Saturday. And suddenly this missioner comes in with the pastor's permission and says that what I have to do is teach them the Apostles' Creed, not teach them, as I was doing, leading discussions of what's it like to be a Christian with everything you have to deal with in your everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was still so emotional.
Yeah.
So it was so much the opposite. There were no creed requirements, and when I struggle over certain words, Pastor Jeff would help me understand the history of the word and how the meaning had changed, and that some of the words that seemed objectionable now had a different meaning originally. So
yeah,
he was clearly helping with struggles,
Yeah, you were definitely struggling in that area, and he was able to, just to put you at ease. And when I first came to Niles,
that I believe in a certain way.
Right, right. Yeah. When I first came to Niles, I had the interview with Pastor Brenda, who was very comforting. And after that, we met for lunch, and I was convinced, that Niles was where I was going. And I had been looking for a church for at least 3 years, 2, 3 years,
Wow.
and had visited quite a few churches around there in, the East Bay. So, and Pastor Jeff, I would run into him from time to time in Panera Bread. And a few times, it worked out. You want to join me? And I had some of the best conversations with him. I mean, after a while, I look forward to running into him at Panera Bread because it was just like sitting down talking to a big brother. Just,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
so loving, so comforting. Yes.
Yeah.
So I understand the emotion. I understand the emotion. I really, really do. All right.
Yeah.
So
One of the things that I really liked about Sunday school, and it's adult ed. I know I should say adult ed.
But are there any details about the wedding?
Oh,
I want to hear about the wedding.
Well, it was interesting, we were the first wedding in the new church.
Oh, see, that's
We
good.
didn't realize that at first, and we were confused as to why there weren't answers to our questions. And Kevin hadn't decided some of these things yet.
Okay.
Like Iris wanted to be able to serve champagne. We're going to have a meal after the wedding right there in the fellowship hall.
Right.
And there were some from half of the church, no alcohol of any kind. Then there are others say, well, we don't want to be that rigid, but we don't want it to be an occasion just to be drinking.
Right.
So they came up with, we could have one toast with the champagne.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
We were not going to have drunkenness. That was not going
right. And that happens at some weddings.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I liked as we went through the service is we found scripture for the service that suited who we are. And we found statements in the service that fit for us, and we added poems so that it really became us, and it really became a sacrament. It wasn't just about how this church set up a wedding. It was about how we were together, creating a service that represented us. And
Jeff had a notebook with we could select that are kind of pre-approved. You didn't need to worry. Okay. And I ended up, and we're going to read to each other. And I ended up choosing a poem, kind of prose. It was in his notebook. And
beautiful.
That kind of openness and kind of endorsement was not familiar to me with the church.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that either. Yeah.
And it was kind of amazing because there were like 3 different ways you could do this and 3 different ways you could do that. And so it created an opportunity for us to make it fit us, but it was also all there. And it was the same message that we got when we came to the first service, is everybody is welcome. And yes, we are about God. We are about love. We are about following the path of Jesus. Those things are all real. And we welcome you where you are. Was just so much a part of it. Yeah, that was really cool.
Well, yeah. I wish I could have been at the wedding. I got there a little bit too late.
Yeah. No, it was a very nice wedding. We got lots of comments from our family.
Oh, yeah.
I think our families all felt really comfortable. And my older brother is very much an evangelical Christian. And he liked the ceremony. And then Leonard, your daughter, Barbara, who's
Converted
Jew,
to Judaism.
yeah,
Oh,
she
great.
liked the wedding and the service. It was like, and then some of our family and friends who weren't particularly active in any kind of faith community, they seemed to get something from the church, like our friend Jean. And it was good. Yeah,
Perfect.
it is perfect.
What's not to like when we're progressive, okay? That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, now we can jump into adult Sunday school.
Okay. Fair enough.
Leonard,
You
do
know,
you want a chance to talk? I won't let her do all the talking.
Yeah, I really, for during rough times, that was what would keep me coming. Those times when we were in person in the fellowship hall around the
Yeah.
tables,
Yeah,
and those were really those discussions kept me going.
good.
And new perspectives, new understandings. It made it really worthwhile.
Yeah,
It hasn't been quite the same, I think, on Zoom.
yeah, it's not the same on Zoom. I
Yeah.
agree. And I really enjoyed all the different perspectives. I mean, if there were 10 of us at the table, there were at least 5 different perspectives, you know.
I thought more
But-
than there were a number of people.
Yeah, I was being, you know, but I enjoyed how everybody shared their perspective, but everybody was respective of everybody else's perspective and opinions. And I was like, this is real. And you really come away feeling like, okay, I can look at it from this perspective now, and let me think about that. And it really gave you a lot to think about and to pray on. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Iris?
Yeah, I like the way you said it, Veronica, that there was a lot of exploring of ideas and perspectives, and we used the books to kind of focus that conversation, but it wasn't it wasn't in a rigid way. People could move into the content the way they needed to and move it into their actual lives. I mean, a lot of times we'd end up starting with the book and then talking about what was happening in our worlds. And it was very much an interplay of what was happening in our lives as we lived it, and then what we were finding in the books. I think the thing that it was really different for me because I hadn't been in a church before. I'd never studied material the way we were studying. And I really liked, it was like whole new ideas about the Gospels and about the Bible came through in the books that we were reading, Borg and Crossan and Holy Chaos. And, we were also reading then some books that weren't about theology, like The Warmth of Other Suns, so that we were trying to expand our understanding of our worlds and our spiritual journey by understanding those worlds better. And I really found that extremely valuable. Yeah. I have been thinking a lot about how the books that we've been reading with Richard Rohr and that really focus on the importance of love, just stick with love, and the love of God and the love that God showed us and the love that Christ showed the people around him. I mean, some of that stuff was so liberating from the notion of go to church and confess your sins and leave church feeling better. Well, I didn't feel better.
No, that didn't work at all.
Yeah, but I know that has a place for people. I know that it's very important for some people to start there, and that's fine. I think that's the thing I would say. We start wherever we are, and we try to be very respectful of one another's beliefs and concerns in their faith journey. But then we try to be a little broader. We try to be a little more inclusive and really focus in on what's really important, in what Jesus had to teach us, and about loving each other, about loving God, about loving creation. Yeah, that's been really strong for me lately. I think it's really been important because of COVID and yeah.
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 COVID gave us a different perspective on a lot of things. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it sure did.
All right.
And Veronica, I think you're joining us when you added a really valuable new dimension to the conversation in the group. You have a lot of different experiences in different church communities, and you were always so willing to talk about the different ways you'd encountered the teachings about how to love God and how to love Jesus. And that was always just, it really enriched it. And I think it's a really good example of how each person's experience helps us all have a deeper experience. That's part of adult ed. Yeah.
Yes. I agree 100%, because around the table, like Leonard grew up Catholic, you didn't go to church. We had Mansour and and what he wasn't Muslim.
Muslim. He was raised Muslim and then practicing Buddhism.
Muslim with a Buddhist.
Okay, yeah, Muslim Buddhism. Yeah. So he would join in, he and his wife, and then I come there, from the Southern Baptist. I mean I even come from the East Coast with its, own unique ways and things about religion. And
I think Harold and Roberta could really.
Harold and Roberta. Yep. So we had quite a mix. And it was just really enriching for me to hear all of the different, all of the different paths that people took. But, the beauty was around that table, we all ended up in love.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, so we all took different paths, but here we are. And, I have progressed because I have, I started out in the Baptist church, and then, I went to a Methodist church, didn't really join a Methodist church, but I'd go there. And then, when I moved to California, I ended up in an evangelical church down in San Jose. So, yeah, all these different paths. And my path has gone every which way. And then I end up at Niles Discovery, and I realize, okay, you have found a new level. This is yet another level for you. So, and adult Sunday school really helped me the most. Yeah. I'm sorry, Leonard.
It serves as kind of an anchor to us. Your emphasis and trust in God's love is at a higher level than most of us. And when we start getting a little, chaotic in our thinking and responses, you kind of bring us back to that.
That's really true. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe he put me in Niles and had me affirm all of that, and even share a little bit with everybody else. And then, now I'm doing this health challenge, and it's like, okay, let's see if you can walk what you talk. let's see you live up to all that you believe. And it's been amazing how, facing cancer with God and his love, and I'm just walking right through. So,
I think that's really true about Niles Discovery Church. I mean, maybe it is adult ed, but so many times things that we were talking about in adult ed would resonate with the service. You know,
Mhm.
I'd walk out of adult ed and we would have been talking, I can't even remember a good example, but we would have been talking about compassion. And then
Mhm.
we come into the surface and there we are talking about compassion again. And
Mhm.
the synergy sometimes would just astound me. And I'd go and I'd run up to Pastor Brenda and I'd say, your sermon was just right on the money with what we were doing in adult school. And she says, yeah, that really helps. That really happens.
And her series this past month tells us that we need to think about planning a trip again. Because
Well,
I
and
really enjoyed, travel as a spiritual act, because it really has been that for me. And I have
yeah,
really enjoyed it. And I never knew that Rick Steves was, I didn't know whether he was a Christian or what he was. I just didn't know. But man, I was blown away. I was like, wow. So yeah. Anyway, uh,
yeah.
so anything else? What did we leave? Oh,
I guess the one thing I'd like to squeeze in is
Oh,
that
go ahead.
gratitude has been the key thing to keep coming up for me over and over. That and like from time to time they talk about um, the outside world, the plants and animals, and
Oh yeah, they
the stars, and what we're learning about how this whole system originated, and all of that just brings such gratitude.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
it's such a contrast from obedience, it's such a contrast from an angry, punishing God,
Right,
Uh,
right.
this is the opposite.
Exactly, exactly. All right. Well, any closing comments?
That was mine.
Oh, okay.
I'm fine with finishing with gratitude.
Yeah,
I think that's a really wonderful closing for us.
yes.
Um,
Well,
and
that works for me too.
yeah,
So thank you so much.
Thank
thank
you.
Really
you.
enjoyed chatting with you. And
Thank you for staying with us despite going home to Maryland.
I
Yeah,
know. Well, God worked all that out too, because I really wasn't ready to leave the church, but it was time for me to come home. And, who knew COVID was coming? But
Yeah.
then
who knew?
Or
COVID
what is
came, and then I was
didn't
like,
exist.
oh, yeah. I mean, so there's some good that came out of COVID. I'm still with Niles Discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
God works it all out for the good. So love you. God bless
Love
you,
you.
and see you later.
Yeah, love you.
Love you.